this is your host, Julia Nepini. I am a clinical and forensic social worker who owns a counseling practice and a consulting business. In this show, we discuss the challenges of being successful in business while maintaining your integrity and staying true to yourself. Join me while I interview other professionals and share insights from life and experience. Let's talk about RingRx, our latest sponsor. RingRx is a high-quality, HIPAA-compliant telephone, text, and fax communications platform. They provide seamless, cost-effective communications for behavioral therapists, medical practices, hospitals, and other healthcare providers. RingRx is designed for modern healthcare environments. They offer customizable features like a phone app, automated patient outreach, voicemail, after-hours call routing, and top-quality desk phones. Try RingRx for free today at ringrx.com. And if you sign up using the code CLIMB, you'll get 15% off your monthly bill forever. Conditions apply. Hello and welcome to another episode of the Compassionate Climb podcast. I am here today for another solo episode. Our focus is speaking engagements. How do you get yourself in front of a larger audience, whether that's locally, nationally, internationally? And I will share what's worked for me. As we know, there are many different roads to get to where you want to go, but this one has been a wild ride and a really enjoyable one. And thinking back, there were definitely some strategic things that I did that I wasn't necessarily aware of at the time that really set me up for success in this area of my professional life. So this idea for an episode came out of my recent experience presenting on the Enneagram and how to incorporate it in our clinical work at the Clinician Connection Conference in Virginia Beach. So I had attended this conference last year as an attendee and was really impressed with the speaker lineup and the hosts, Lisa and Chris, all the work that they had put into this event. Loved the location. It is right on the beach. There were a lot of things to do. It was really fun, great time of year. And I decided that I wanted to present. And being alongside such incredible professionals, having a room full of people that were engaged and nodding emphatically and providing really interesting feedback and asking good questions. And then at the end of the presentation, to have such a positive response, people in the room that might have had some familiarity with the Enneagram saying that there were things that they had learned that they didn't already know, and other people who had been intrigued by the idea of the Enneagram, but learned information that they could now potentially use with their clients or with their team is so incredible. And so I had shared some of my experience on my social media from my consulting business, Compassionate Consulting Company. And a fellow group practice owner that I have connected with on there sent me a message and said, "This is so cool. How do you get more speaking gigs? I'm really interested in doing this as well." And so a lot of this comes out of the message response that I had sent to her about what had worked for me. So if you are out there and this is something that you have interest in, you're intrigued by the idea, maybe you've just dipped your toe in and you're looking for this to be something that you spend more of your time and energy on, I am going to give you some strategies that have been really helpful. So if I were to look back across the span of my career, there are several things that I did that really set me up for success and where I am right now. And I didn't necessarily know it at the time, but it was pretty strategic. So I would say the first thing was my master's in social work. So when I was at St. Anselm, I, throughout the entire time there, was completing all of the requirements for both a teaching degree as well as their social work concentration. And it came down to my final year, and I had to make a decision. In order to complete the requirements to be a teacher, I would have to student teach, which was a semester-long requirement, or go on a trip to Honduras that I had gotten selected for to volunteer my time, stay at an orphanage, and do some community service. and I chose Honduras. And now looking back, that doesn't surprise me at all. I have always had this interest in traveling the world, experiencing other countries, cultures, ways of life. It's really what fueled my desire to become a social worker and really focusing on the person in their environment, relationships, the dynamics of the family system. And so now, where I stand today, I couldn't be more grateful that that was the direction that I chose, and ultimately getting that concentration in social work and going on for my master's degree, because teaching has actually been a part of every job that I have ever had. And I did ultimately go on to teach at a college, and I have been able to provide trainings and workshops and now present at conferences. And I also did it on a smaller scale through supervision or being that mentor to a lot of my other colleagues. So it all worked out. So that was the start. And then from the master's program, I had exposure to many different settings, populations, helped people through a variety of different issues. And that was also really helpful because I got a really clear sense of who I do my best work with and the populations or the issues that I really want to be focusing on. So got a lot of really good clinical skills and supervision, got independently licensed, and that really helped me build the foundation of my private practice when I decided to start it in 2017. And even though I didn't have any knowledge about the business side of a private practice, and I also was not someone who had really had any experience with marketing and having to promote myself, I did it anyways. And the practice was successful. I started part-time while I was working at a hospital, built my caseload, got things solid, and then 2 years later transitioned to full-time. And then in May 2021, started hiring clinicians. And all of those experiences really helped me illuminate what genuinely lit me up. So there was a period of time where it was the work that I was doing as a therapist. I really enjoyed working with couples, helping them navigate a lot of their parenting struggles, communication challenges, life transitions. Then there was a period of time where I got trained in forensic social work, and I was helping individuals navigate the divorce process and then post-divorce when they had children, minimizing the impact of conflict on their children, and really helping them stay focused on some tangible strategies so that their children could remain at the forefront of their mind and they didn't let a lot of the issues that they had with one another get in the way. And then from there, I really found that I had this affinity for the business side of a private practice. I really enjoyed the foundational skills, developing systems and processes, getting a structure, organization, developing a roadmap. And obviously, as a natural helper, I really enjoyed assisting other people in getting where they wanted to go. And so I found that I was actually drawn more to this short-term work that is consulting, where you're coming in for a very specific purpose. So as opposed to a therapist where you could technically be in a position where you're helping somebody work through really anything that they're bringing to you, it was very concentrated and focused. And so I took a lot of what had been helpful to me and shared that with other people and saw them be successful in very minimal time. And that was extremely rewarding because it also demystified this message that a lot of us got early on, that if you wanted to help people, then that conflicted with the idea of making money and this narrative that as a social worker, I would never be able to earn a good living. I was seeing how I was able to charge what I was worth. I was able to help people get results. I was able to help them also be successful financially, but also professionally. And so that then just evolved. And so when I had started the consulting business, initially I was unofficially helping a lot of my colleagues get their practices started and hire clinicians. And so when I made the decision to make that its own business, I was considering what would be helpful for me to start spreading the word. And I know that consulting was not something that I could have afforded when I first started. So I thought that offering something for free would be beneficial. I wanted it to be quality. I wanted people to have tangible takeaways. So I offered 2 free workshops. One was on starting a private practice and one was on expanding to group. And they were both structured very similarly. So we would talk about all the things that you should consider beforehand, how to know if it's the right decision for you, the pros and cons. So I shared a lot of the reality of my own experience and what I found was really enjoyable about owning a business and growing a business. But I was really honest about some of the aspects that were not so enjoyable. And then I provided a roadmap. So for the solo private practice workshop, it was all of the steps to starting a business. And for expanding to group, I gave an overview of what that really entailed. And those free workshops filled my consulting business for my first year. I had enough people that had attended and were interested, and the word spread that kept me busy. And so from there, I had the opportunity to provide those workshops as trainings through the National Association of Social Workers. And they were for continuing education credits. So that provided a lot more credibility because it was one of the largest organizations for social workers out there, very reputable, and obviously very enticing for people to be able to attend at a reasonable cost, get helpful information, and from there be able to, get those credits and take that information and run with it. So that also really helped to continue these referrals for consulting clients. And then from there, I was seeking out more professional connections with people that could relate to my own unique experience as a group practice owner. So for those of you out there who are in a similar position, I'm sure you can understand that as you start to hire a team and you're in more of a leadership or managerial role, you can't expect that those in your practice will understand a lot of what goes on behind the scenes. And even if you end up hiring individuals in leadership positions, you can go to them with certain aspects of the business and collaborate on decision making. But in all reality, no one is going to fully understand your practice in the ways that you do because they haven't made those sacrifices. They haven't grown it in the ways that you did. That level of investment is going to be very different. And so I started attending conferences, retreats, summits for those that were in a similar space. So either practice owners or those that were group practice owners. So some were more clinically based and some had more to do with the business side of a private practice. And I made connections. So I didn't go to these events with the intention of ultimately hosting my own retreat or presenting at a conference. But as I'm sitting there in the room and I'm listening to the information that's being shared, it reinforced that I also had information that was valuable and that could potentially help more people than just my individual consulting clients if I were to share it on a larger scale. And that teacher in me was stirring again. And I was really intrigued by that idea of getting up in front of a room and having an engaging and interactive discussion, but to be able to share information about topics that I was really passionate about, that I could not only share the information, but I also could share my own personal stories and the situations that help me to be more relatable to other people. And so it started off with this clinician connection conference where I attended, like I said, last year and had a really positive experience. I had the host, Lisa, on my podcast, and we talked about her whole experience with planning and organizing. And then it just very organically turned into come and present. And it was a no-brainer that the Enneagram for me has been something so transformative in my own life personally, but also in how I conduct myself as a practice owner and how I get to know people in the consulting business. And so that was in the works. And then from there, I had also attended another conference that Casey Compton puts on, Meet You in Kentucky. And that one's specifically for group practice owners. And so I came back with such great information about getting your systems really solid and delegating and scaling. And so I thought, why not? I'll apply to speak next year. And my application got accepted. So I am speaking next month in May on embracing entrepreneurial spirits. So I thought to myself, in the group practice space, how do I set myself apart? What is something that I have experienced, and what makes my view about that particular situation different than maybe the average clinician? And one of the things that I have had experience with, and brings up all sorts of feelings for me, is when you have a clinician that you bring into the practice and you invest so much time and energy into helping them be the best clinician that they can be. And then they ultimately make the decision to transition out of your practice. And very oftentimes it's to start their own. And I thought about how I have come to handle that in my own practice. And so much of that comes from working for a group practice before I started my own. I'd been there for 3 years on a part-time basis. And I had felt that I had become a lot more independent while I was there, was a lot less reliant on them, had really generated a lot of referrals for the practice through word of mouth, was doing really good work with my clients, documentation was on point, and I had requested a raise and actually put in writing all the reasons why I felt it was justified, and it got denied. And so at that point, I realized that I wanted to continue to do the work, but I wanted to do it in a different way and really ensure that I was compensated for all the things that I was bringing to the table. So that is when Compassionate Counseling Company was born. And I started that practice, was fortunately able to take the clients with me, and built it from there. So that's the talk next month. And then I have another connection that I have made through attending events, retreat and this Clinician Connection Conference, Mackenzie, who is hosting a connection and growth weekend in her home state of Missouri in October. And she had asked me to present. And I really thought about what topic would be beneficial to those clinicians that are attending, that are all likely mothers and are navigating all of the challenges of their personal and professional lives and trying to juggle everything. And for me, the big theme of my life this year is being a CEO. So I have a mastermind group called Master Your CEO Mindset that I co-facilitated with Sarah Rivera. And what came out of that was really this idea of being the CEO in your group practice, but it really is a mindset. And it's something that you can utilize to be successful in all areas of your life. And if you can be the CEO of a business, you can also be the CEO of your life. It's the same mentality. It's how you make decisions. It's how you structure your week. It's how you lean into challenges. And so that will be the topic, how to be the CEO of your life and business. So in the midst of all of these conferences and connections that I had made through attending events, I had also been on a few retreats. And I really love the idea of blending your work with travel, experiencing new places. And as you all know, I mean, the idea of a retreat being a smaller group, it's really curated. There is this experiential component. So when you're especially going to a new place, and you're having all of these experiences with particular people, you are always going to remember that moment in time and who you shared it with. And so I had made the decision to go to a retreat this past March in Indonesia with wellness counseling, Arilda Suraj, and it was truly life-changing. So it was actually a larger group. There were about 50 of us. There were presenters, so we got continuing education credits, but we also went on excursions, and we had opportunities to come together and learn more about the religion and really immersed ourselves in nature. And so I continued having conversations with Arilda afterwards about how impactful it was. And she had shared with me that there was enough interest for people to return the following year. And I had her on my podcast as well. So the podcast has also been a great catalyst to get to know people better, peel back those layers, have really intentional conversations. And we kind of, again, had this really natural, authentic conversation about my desire to want to present and be more a part of these events, and how I thought what she was doing was so impressive. And so she had asked if I would speak at the next one, and I agreed. And so that is going to be happening next year, and I'll be able to bring my fiance and my daughter on that trip with me, which will make it even more incredible. And then from there, I had seen that there was a Thrive Therapist Summit in Portugal. And I was kind of riding the high from all of these incredible experiences and thought, why not? I will submit an application to speak. I just happened to come across it right before the deadline and got that application approved as well. So it's just become this snowball rolling down the hill. So if we were to reflect back on everything that I just shared with you all, what were the most significant pieces that set me up to be in this position? I think it's obviously having a solid knowledge base. So it was obviously the degree and the experience that I had in order to get licensed. It was having the experience working with clients. It was the business side and really becoming proficient in systems and processes and hiring and leadership. And so that has then broadened the scope of what I have in my arsenal to share with people, that I can not only provide research and information, knowledge, impart some sort of wisdom that the average person may not know, but it's coupled with my own personal experience. There's this passion that I have and this story that comes from every presentation that I give that makes it more relatable and helps you to really connect with your audience, and is also a way for you to set yourself apart and make whatever the topic is your own. So I guess what I would say is, if this is something that you're interested in, don't wait to get started. There are so many opportunities for you in your local community to offer to potentially speak for free, get your voice out there, offer some sort of a training or a workshop, identify a need or an area that you have some advanced knowledge in that you can share. And then you can always repurpose that content. So you could get that approved for CEs. You could record it and offer it for sale on your website. You could take clips of that and share that on your social media. You could create a blog post of the key points of your talk. So there are so many different ways for you to take that one experience and repurpose, use it again, get it out there. And then from there, networking and connecting with the right people. So if you're surrounding yourself with people that are doing things that are interesting to you, that you have the desire to do yourself, then pick their brain when you have the opportunity to pull them aside, or, grab coffee, or if you have interest in creating a podcast, or you could be interviewed on their podcast, or just having very intentional conversations coming from a place of curiosity where I see that you're doing something that's really inspiring to me. I want to understand more of how you got to be doing that. What would you suggest to me? What can I do? And then don't hesitate. Don't be afraid to shoot big. If there is some sort of a conference and there's an application, apply. The more exposure you have and the more intentional conversations, interviews, and trainings that you provide, the better equipped that you're going to be for expanding that knowledge and sharing that with more people. So I hope that this was helpful. I am always happy to answer any of your questions. So do not hesitate to reach out if you have interest in any of the things that I talked about today. I am also happy to have you added to my mailing list. I share every week an email that not only promotes whatever topic we're discussing on the podcast, but I also share a lot of these events. And if I'm speaking, or if I'm interested, or if I think it would be beneficial to the audience, the information will be contained in there. So feel free to shoot me an email, Julia Nepini at compassionateconsultingcompany.com. You can always go over to compassionateconsultingcompany.com. There is a contact tab. Follow us on social media. I am always sharing information about these things, providing some insights into what I'm up to and what's going on, and also sharing any of the tips that have been helpful for me. So thanks for listening, and I appreciate you following along. If you like what you're hearing, please rate and review. This will help others find us and benefit as well. The Compassionate Climb podcast represents the opinions of Julia Nepini and her guests. The information provided is intended for educational purposes only and should not be taken as legal advice. If that is what you are seeking, please consult an attorney.